What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Let's make sure that we're straight here. I see some buffering going on. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Here we go. We are about to get this party started. A little experiment, by the way. So first off, I got to apologize for the glare. I'm blind as a bat without my glasses, but I think we can make up for it. And if you take a look here, you can read it. That's right. You can absolutely read this thing. So the way that this came about was that I was noticing that, okay, I'm going to be using the laptop a lot for school since we're on lockdown and some of my classes were going to be through Zoom. So then I was just thinking, okay, wait a minute. Since I'm using the laptop exclusively, let's experiment real quick on Facebook and see what it's going to look like if I try to go Facebook Live off of the laptop. And this is what we're seeing. So hope you can hear me. I'm still following along on this experimental deal here. I've got the big boy computer up as well. Let's see if this is going successfully. I think it is. So that's good. All right. So what I've got here in the title is In the Spirit of Wondrous Boccaccio. And for those who are not familiar with Wondrous Boccaccio, it's an Italian movie that my instructor gave us to watch while we were transitioning from face-to-face in classroom meetings to get ready to do stuff online. He didn't want to give us a whole lot of serious homework, but he still wanted to kind of stay in touch with Italian stuff. So he gave us the movie Wondrous Boccaccio, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what the movie was all about. In the 13th century, 10 children escape an outbreak of the Black Death and seek shelter in the countryside. And actually, it's not really children as we know it. These were more like teenagers. So they escape an outbreak of the Black Death and seek shelter in the countryside. To pass the time, each young person tells a story that helps them cope with the uncertainties of life. So imagine that. You got people huddled around. They've made a little bit of an escape, but they're huddled around, and each day somebody takes their day to tell a story. Well, what we got going on right now is a pandemic, and we are all kind of tucked away, and we're stuck in the house and all that kind of stuff. And I just figured, why not do a little bit of Wondrous Boccaccio 2020? Tell you a quick story. Now, oh wait, before I do that, hold on. I got to do like I usually would do when I would be hosting interviews on my radio shows on WHPK and also on WLUW, where I would have background music. So I got my little background music going on. This is a 1998 essential mix from BBC Radio 1, Ricky Morrison and Fran Sedilli. So now, this is a story that I actually shared before, but I haven't shared it as often as I shared the other stories about my time in the 90s. As you can see, I'm representing the 90s with this hat, Fila. This is a hat from the 90s. So when I'm in 90s mode, I got to do it straight up. This, however, this is more current. So I'm getting the old and the new. But anyway, back to the story. So I shared this story back in January when I had a guest co-host, Bobby Q Bobby, and we were reminiscing about the 90s. And for this being the 2-hour show that we were doing, the first hour we broke it up in the first half of the 90s, and that's where this story is going to come from, because I shared it on the show before, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. It was 1993. And at the time, I was still stationed at Patrick Air Force Base, Florida. And that's Cocoa Beach. And at this time, I had a good car. I had a car before, but this time I had a really reliable car. It was a Honda Civic. I was able to get around anywhere I needed to go. And at this time, also, I had already completed my upgrade training on the job so I could do stuff a little bit more independently without a whole lot of heavy supervision. And that also meant that I had more time to do other pursuits off duty. And so one of those pursuits was to do the radio show or a radio internship, radio station internship at WFIT. And that was Florida Institute of Technology, located in Melbourne, Florida. Now, as I mentioned on the radio show, I shadowed this guy who went by the name of Spider D. He was a hip hop DJ. He played on Wednesday nights, if I remember correctly. Definitely was not having anything to do with house music. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to do this internship, see what the radio station looked like, see what how the setup was, see where everybody keeps their records, how you program a show, and all that kind of stuff. So DJ's musical preferences didn't phase me because I'm this househead from Chicago, plain and simple. so, so we did the internship, and at the end of everything, I put in a request, or actually, it was an application, as I had mentioned on the show with Bobby Q Bobby. I put in an application to get a restricted radio license from the FCC. It was a yellow card about the size of a credit card. You would have to have that, and that's for college radio or public radio or commercial radio. It didn't matter if you were on terrestrial radio with some kind of broadcasting signal frequency, you were required to have this license. Until I got a letter back from the FCC saying that they had changed their rules. So the license was no longer required. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Now it's just a matter of waiting to see when I could get a radio show on the station. In the meantime, when it came to official Air Force matters, this was around the time with that based on how many months I was on, what we call it time on station, how long you're at the current unit or the current base of assignment. When you reach a certain threshold of so many months, you can start putting in for your next duty assignment. Where would you like to go next if you were given a choice and if there were slots open for you? We fill out this form called the Air Force Form 392, Airman Assignment Preference Sheet. We nicknamed it Dream Sheet because if you filled out this form, you were dreaming of where you wanted to go next. So the Dream Sheet. 8 locations that you can choose stateside and 8 locations overseas. And for the overseas locations, you can choose a short tour location, which would basically be between 12 and, let's say, 12 to 15 or 12 to 18 months, depending on the location, unaccompanied. You can also do the standard long tour assignments, which for unaccompanied folks like myself at the time would be 2 years. And people who were married or had dependents, they would do 3 years. And then you can also fill out the long tour locations, but you would do the extended long, which was standard plus 12. So unaccompanied folks would do 3 years, and then the accompanied folks would do 4. Now, at this time, of course, I was kind of on the fence. On the personal side, I was kind of on the fence about trying to get a radio show in Melbourne, Florida, because again, I had completed the whole internship thing. I had a handful of records that could carry me. And then I also was mail ordering stuff all the time. So I knew I was going to be suitably armed to do a radio show in Melbourne, Florida. But then professionally, got this opportunity to decide where I was going to go next. I didn't want to go nowhere in the States. But it was like, no, because there was only one location on my mind, and that would have been overseas, and that would have been across the pond, because I had already known. I mean, again, remember, this is 1993. I had known for some time now that house music was hugely popular in the UK. You know what I mean? So that was the only place I wanted to go if I had an opportunity to choose my next location for a duty station assignment. And as I said on the dream sheet, 8 slots in the states, 8 slots overseas. As luck would happen to have it, the Air Force had 8 bases in the UK. So you know what I did? I volunteered for every single location that there was a military base in the UK. And for every single location, I volunteered for the extended long tour so that I could spend 3 years over there. Because the inside info, I was a personnel guy, so I knew the inside tricks. The saying was, if you want to go overseas really badly, volunteer for extended long, because that guarantees more continuity. We call it return on investment, but it's more continuity because you're actually staying longer, and again, continuity on the tail end at your location. So I volunteered extended long for every single UK base. Came back, got RAF Alconbury with reporting of June of 1994. So of course that meant that I would no longer be in this position to do the radio show thing in Melbourne, Florida. Now, before I go to this other piece here, I'm going to show you something. I didn't get an opportunity to do this when I was doing the radio show with Bobby Q Bobby, because we were kind of pressed for time because we were trying to talk about an entire decade. We're talking about a 10-year stretch from 1990 to 1999. I couldn't spend too long of a time talking about my opportunities to do a radio show in Melbourne, Florida. So I couldn't show everything, but I got something right here that we can do. Let me pull this bad boy up. It is too bad that I don't have this anymore, but having this is the next best thing. Actually, I posted a little bit of this on Facebook some time ago too, but now I can do it again here. Okay, let me hold this one up for you. Oh, sorry about the glare, but if you notice, okay, that's a good angle. Hold up. WFIT staff. So that was my reward for the internship. I got a t-shirt. I could easily have been mistaken for a staff member. And if I had actually gotten that radio show, I would have been wearing that shirt proudly, representing for Chicago. And let me show you just something else too. I mentioned that I had a handful of records. I had a couple of crates, had stuff mail ordered, but there was also a local record shop in Rockledge that I was able to find some stuff. Now my memory is a little bit fuzzy on a couple of these. I'm pretty sure I saw these. I know for sure that I saw this one because I mentioned it to Bobby anyway. I told him I saw this one there. Jomanda, got a love for you. That one was remixed, like the song itself was remixed by Steve So Curly, but you also had E Smooth on the remix. That was when all of a sudden the label itself, Big Beat, went into a joint partnership with Atlantic Records. Now, also one that I had mentioned from the record shop in Rockledge that I saw, and I bought this one just on the strength of the name, not the artist name. I mean, yeah, you can buy it on the strength of the artist name, but I bought this one on the strength of the remixer's name. Let me try to get this one close up to you so you can see who the remixer is. Too much glare. That's all right. I'll tell you who the remixer was. It was Steve Still Curly. So when I saw his name, I'm in the record shop. I'm looking like, oh, okay. And then it says 4 brand new 92 mixes by Steve So Curly. I just bought it. I didn't even have to listen to it. I didn't care. Steve So Curly's name was on it, so the money was about to get spent. Let's just leave it at that. Now, this is another one that I'm pretty sure I saw at that record shop. Kim Sims, Too Blind to See It, produced by Steve Sir Curly, made famous on MTV because I saw the video on MTV. That's what gravitated me to that one anyway. And it was on this one. This is the one that I bought first when I realized that this was previously released on the local Chicago label, ID Records. It just got picked up by Atco. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then also another Steve Sir Curly thing. CeCe Peniston, We Got a Love Thing. Steve Sir Curly, E Smooth, and Maurice. So representing Chicago to the fullest. I have some more comments about these in just a couple of seconds. But then I also saw this girl, Kathy Dennis. This one is Touch Me All Night Long. And of course, this one is Just Another Dream. Just showing the power of how house music was getting the national attention and all of that. So, again, as I said, I was getting stationed in the UK in 1994, which meant that I would not be in a position to do a radio show at WFIT. And I didn't do any radio at all in the UK. The whole 7 years I was there, I did no radio. It was just strictly the pubs. I started off at the pub. I did pubs, did private parties. I did basically house parties. The clubs, of course. Did a couple of boat parties. Did a couple of corporate events. Did a couple of military events. I played at the military club on base. But no radio. Didn't do any radio. Basically during the 90s, the first time I had any exposure on the radio was WKKC when they played a couple of my mixes in 1997 when I came home on leave. So that was my first radio exposure at all, starting basically at home in Chicago. So that was just too cool. But I did finally get to radio on the internet, and that was thanks to DJ Hutch, who, by the way, rest in peace. He had recently departed us due to complications contracting the coronavirus. So that was sad news to hear. But he was the man responsible for me actually finally getting my footing in radio on the internet radio station. It's JerseyDJs.com, and this is my mini disc because I was recording all my stuff on mini discs. My first show was called Soul Revival, and I had done it on September 9th, 2006. And so, shout out to DJ Hutch for that opportunity regarding radio. Now, this is the really funny part for me. As thankful as I am for the path that the Air Force put me on by getting me overseas and whatnot, sometimes I still wonder, like, if I hadn't gone to the UK and I had stayed in Melbourne, Florida, what might I have done? There's only one thing that I know for sure I would have done. Like only one thing. Upon getting a radio show, I would have patterned it after the legendary WKKC in two fronts. Number one, they had their continuous mix shows on the Friday nights, Friday Night Network Connection, Friday Night Audio, and then also on Saturday mornings with sound waves. So let's just say I had 2 hours. I probably would have been able to do 2 hours or maybe 3, but let's just go with a round number of 2 hours. One of those 2 hours would have been a continuous mix, and I probably would have done it on the tail end of the show. And then the other part would be that I would pattern it after Bobby Q Bobby in the way that he did his shows on Sundays because he played stuff unmixed. So I know for sure I would have done the best of both worlds. For a 2 hour show, I would have started off unmixing certain stuff, introducing the stuff hot off the press that I just got from Chicago because again, I was mail ordering stuff. I was getting stuff through Chicago, the Gramophone. A couple of other buddies were sending me stuff, and then I was getting stuff from New York City. Jay at Vinyl Mania, that was a hot guy to get stuff from. So as soon as I got that stuff, I would have to run to the radio station, put it on the air, and then when I was getting these records here, this one and this one and this one, oh, that one, and of course this one, and of course that one, and of course that one. As I was getting them from the local record shop in Rockledge, I would have been banging them either unmixed or in the mix, or giving them maximum airplay and definitely representing Chicago to the fullest. One other final note, speaking of radio, now again, what I'm holding in my hand here is from radio station WA1A. I had made an inquiry about what they were doing about house music and stuff, and I got this special mix that said, not for public broadcast. So I had never played it in public. I will not be downloading this to Mixcloud or anything. You just have to just just use your imagination. There's a variety of dance music on this tape. But the awesome thing about this is the date of the mix. It's the 19th of February, 1994. And there's some house on there. Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey is one that definitely stands out from off the top of my head. So thinking again, by 1994, house music was still circulating around America. But then something else that comes to mind is like, well, if I had stayed in Florida, what would the scene be like, say, 1995, 96, 97, when hip hop was really making more of an inroad across America on popular radio? Would I have been more pronounced, more visible doing house music as opposed to the other genres on college radio? That's an interesting thing to look at. So I think that will just about do it for this Wondrous Boccaccio session. I have nothing. Well, now there is one more thing I could show you. And this again still kind of relates to radio in a sense. As I think back, looking at the possibilities of what could have happened if I had put on a radio show. Again, I say the only thing I do know for sure is that I would have patterned it after WKKC. I don't believe that I would have had my name change going on and I say name change because I changed my name when I was in England. I've got here my very first mix that I did, house mix number 1 and 2, the 3rd of May and the 4th of May, 1994, just a couple of months before I had transferred over to the UK. At the time, I was using Reggie Davenport. You can't see it on here, of course, because it's too much glare. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. We broke through the glare. Reggie Davenport. I was using that name. I didn't change my name to DJ Purple until I got to the UK. So that's something like, would I have kept my name, Reggie Davenport, or would I have shortened it? Because that was the thing to do in the early 90s, is that sometimes you would use your nickname and you wouldn't necessarily use your entire last name. You might just shorten it to the first letter, initials, something like that. That's one of those things that we did. So DJ Purple is a UK product. It's not an American product. It came about on the spot while at the pub Muswell's in the UK. Would I have done that? Would DJ Purple have been birthed in Melbourne, Florida? I don't know. I can't say. Knowing what I know now, I still couldn't say. As I said before, the only thing I know for sure that I would have done is pattern it after WKKC. And with that, I think I will go ahead and say ciao. Hope you enjoyed my storytelling session. Feel free to comment. Feel free to share. And again, this was purely experimental, trying to go off the laptop, because the wondrous thing I saw about that is that you can read this stuff. It's not reversed back into you where everything is all backwards. So hopefully this is a successful video. Feel free to leave comments if you can hear everything all right, if it turned out great. If you want to see more in this type of setting, I could do a Wondrous Boccaccio series. That can be fun. Some more stories. I've got plenty of stories, but I just want to start off with this one because this is a story that doesn't get told a whole lot. That, yeah, this whole thing about me doing radio shows with WHPK and WLUW, that's not my first go round. That's not the first time I even experimented or had any kind of experience behind the booth, because this happened way back in the mid 90s or the early 90s. Again, starting in 1993. Had a taste of it way back then. All right. With no further ado, I think we're going to get on out of here. Let me end this video, and we will catch y'all on the rebound. Deuces.